Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. It is a beautiful day out. We've got a very cool guitar player with us, a really intense, bright fusion player, a long-term teacher as well, with Bill Hart out of Atlanta. A couple of quick messages. I want to thank our mutual friend, Charlie Gilbert. Charlie, you're the man. Thank you for connecting Bill and I. I really appreciate it. Also, make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com/subscribe to subscribe to the audio and the video of the show. If you're already watching us on YouTube, man, hit the subscribe button and the icon that looks like a bell. That helps us out with the YouTube algorithm quite a bit. So thank you. All righty, Bill Hart, guitarist, composer, band leader, educator, and session player. He's released 6 CDs as a leader of the Bill Hart Band, and he's also the author of Solo Jazz Guitar, the Complete Chord Melody Method, which is a Hal Leonard publication. Bill's originally from Toronto, Canada. We will not hold that against him. His family moved to Jacksonville, Florida, where he began his music studies at Jacksonville University. He then moved to LA to study at Guitar Institute of Technology. And in the late 80s, he began his career as a guitar instructor at the Atlanta Institute of Music in Georgia, worked his way up to head the Institute's guitar department, where he taught guitar for over 25 years and mentored over 4,000 students. That's awesome, man. He's performed in guitar clinics with Mike Stern, Steve Kahn, and Scott Henderson. He's toured Mexico, South America, Europe, and the UK playing his own music. And he was awarded a letter from the U.S. Embassy in Venezuela on behalf of his Bill Hart Band for contributions to students in South America. He's also a Grammy nominee. Bill, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate you coming and hanging out with us today, man.
Oh, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. You moved from Canada to Jacksonville and then out to L.A. to study at GIT. What were some of the adjustments, like culturally, you had to make in making those moves? Because they're all pretty different places.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, guitar, I think, was kind of universal. When I went from, of course, living in Canada and Toronto, I was into Rush and groups, the Canadian groups, when I moved to Jacksonville, I was fortunate and got exposed to hanging out with Leonard Skinner because that's where all the Southern rock bands were from.
Yeah, yeah. Did you know any of those guys?
Alan Collins was the guy that I knew that I would go over his house, other than just meeting the other guys. But, Alan was the one I kind of knew.
Great player, man.
Yeah, yeah. And, he was, pretty, I guess, well into a Southern comfort when he was teaching me how to play, working for MCA.
Yeah, all those guys were like, do you happen to know Doyle Dykes?
Doyle Dykes, I've met him a few times too. That guy's amazing.
He's a sweet guy too. Because he grew up as he said, on the wrong side of the tracks in Jacksonville.
Oh, did he really? I didn't know he was from there.
Yeah, really great guy, man. Very cool dude. Hell of a player.
Great player, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, all those guys are up there, and and then stretched over to the Panhandle a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. The
Allman Brothers were from there too.
Well, they were. Yeah, they had some family down there.
Okay.
They were out of Statesboro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were.
But yeah, I mean, as a kid, I used to deliver papers to one of the Allman Brothers' sister, and I thought that was a big deal,
Yeah, it is a big deal, especially as a kid, man. Yeah.
Yeah, culturally, the heat, of course.
Oh, yes.
The attitudes back in the, late 70s, early 80s was, Canada was just kind of a different, vibe as far as the language, I guess you could say, and then when I got to Jacksonville, it was a whole different thing as far as the way, segregation stuff was still going on. And, so all of that was really different. And then when I went to LA, I really liked LA, and that was right in the mid 80s. So that was at the peak of, it was nothing to walk down the road and go to Ralph's and see Rat Shopping or Metallica or any of those guys. They were all over the place there in Hollywood,
That's cool.
So, but I was into the jazz thing too. So, I was really trying to study that stuff.
Who did you play with when you were out there? Like, did you go to school with some guys that you play with that are names now that had careers?
Well, when I went out there, I was really fortunate because I knew Scott Henderson before going out there. So I kind of had a little bit of an in with Scott. Don Mock was the guy that I really loved his playing, and meet him at his door in the morning with 2 cups of coffee and just hang out all day with him. And he's, you know, but as far as, I mean, I did do some gigs out there, some theater type stuff in the band pit. I met a drummer at GIT that was from there and had gigs in South LA and stuff. And you know, it was a great experience because it was like, we have these big orchestra things and we were all dedicated our own page turner, because some of the charts were like 8 pages long, you know.
That's pretty funny, a dedicated page turner.
Yeah.
I didn't know that thing existed.
I know, it was, yeah, because there was, you know, I mean, I have a hard enough time reading without turning the pages.
Who doesn't? Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was, you know, I think there was probably more of a culture difference going from Florida to California than there was from Canada to Florida.
Well, Jacksonville was pretty rural back then. It's still not like a densely, you know, like a proper city. It is a city, but not like a massive city, you know?
Yeah. And in the early 80s, it was pretty country.
Yeah. Very, yeah. I would imagine that it wouldn't be anything to see like rebel flags flying down there all the time. Yeah. That's the way.
Yeah. I mean, when I moved here, I thought that was the American flag, you know, so.
Not good. You know, there's still places here, not many, but like in Central Florida, like some of the that are still kind of like that, believe it or not. It's weird. Yeah. Not a lot of places, but they're still around.
Right. Yeah. And it's, you know, I think Atlanta's kind of growing more towards being mixed in neighborhoods that are kind of, they're cleaning up and stuff. You know, there was a time in the 80s where you couldn't, you know, you wouldn't go into some neighborhoods that are now pretty suburban areas.
How's COVID over there? What's the?
It's I think I saw on the news this morning that it's dropping, so that's good news. I think it took a little bit of a spike with the school starting back.
Yeah, kids going back to college.
Yeah. So I think it's just got to run its course, and you know, hopefully within time this will all be gone.
It's funny, the same thing happened here. All these, when a kid gets it, it's not all the time, but many times it's like literally nothing. Yeah. You know, a couple of friends of my daughters had it, and it was like they lost the sense of smell for a day or two, and that was it. Then they get tested positive, and nothing happened.
Right. Yeah.
So, crazy shit.
A lot of that stuff going on here too. Yeah.
Hey, so how did you get started in the music business? You go out to GIT. What happens next?
Well, growing up, I was always into music. I played hockey, and really, I was probably more pursuing a hockey career in Canada. If I would have stayed there, I probably would have done that, because you know I have a cousin that played with the Blackhawks, and
that's cool.
Canada, it's just that's kind of what you do, is you play hockey. You know, it's kind of like the thing in Texas where there's steers and queers and
guns.
Yeah, you know, in Canada is kind of the same thing. You got hockey players and you don't have hockey players. You know. It's but you know, growing up, it was always. I mean, we played all the time. It was whether it was street hockey in the summer, we played, and you know, we always rented ice and played hockey. And there was little neighborhoods that would kind of play each other. So it was kind of a cool environment growing up in Canada as far as that was concerned. And then when I moved from Canada to Jacksonville, I guess to kind of follow up on the question you had before, the culture shock was totally different. It was more about, you know, redneck and partying and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But music was something I was always kind of drawn to. You know, started about a young age, 9 years old, you know, but you know, I didn't practice every day, but that's when I first started picking up the guitar. So
what made your family move to Jacksonville? That's kind of a random place.
Yeah. It's really, my family is all Canadian, and my stepfather, his father was Canadian and his mother was American, and they lived in the States. So he decided that we were all going to move to Florida, and you know, I think it was a good experience overall. You know, I think you can do a lot more in the States than you could in Canada. You know,
business wise.
Business wise, yeah, yeah.
It's
Really,
easy to making money here is encouraged. It's a lot of freedom as far as that goes.
yeah, yeah. I mean, if you can't do what you want to do here, then you can't do it anywhere.
Totally. What was your post GIT? What was your first break? You started playing guitar at 9. Obviously, you gigged throughout the time as a kid. After GIT, what happened? Business wise.
Uh, After GIT, I was actually moving to New York City back when 48th Street was happening with Alex's and
Yeah.
Annie's and all those places. And when I moved to LA, I had 3 guys that ended up moving out there from New York City that I became roommates with in Hollywood. And it was a bass player, a drummer, and a guitar player. And they all worked on 48th Street, so they kind of knew everybody.
That's so cool. Who are the guys? I wonder if I know them.
Jim Gilligan was one of the guys.
No.
The bass player that worked there was Evan Gluck, and James Moran was the drummer.
Don't know those guys. That's wild.
Yeah. So they were at Alex's.
Yeah.
So when they moved out, it was like Jim came out with just one of those big blue traveling cases that, that like a cedar chest kind of, full of nothing but CDs of like Bill Connors and, all these fusion guys and Steve Kahn. And, it was just amazing, how much music they had. So it was kind of like I had my own fusion band there that I lived with going through GIT, so after that, I was going to move back to New York with those guys. And then I got an offer to work in Atlanta that at the time, the school was called GVW, which was a part of GIT. They had branched out. Yeah, they did a school in London and then a school in Atlanta. And so I came to Atlanta and worked, and it was kind of like their summer session. And what happened was the school kind of broke away and became the Atlanta Institute of Music, and then grew into the institution it is today. So
that's really cool. So you figured you'd come and teach, and which we did for a long time, and then you had all these side gigs.
Yeah.
And you had your career basically outside of teaching.
Right. Yeah. The cool thing about coming to Atlanta at the time was, I was still hungry for music. I never always thought I was a great player. I was always kind of, they say hang out with guys that are better than you and you'll get better.
Yeah. In anything.
The problem is I kept growing and kept getting the guys better, like Mike Stern and stuff. So I never felt like I was any good,
Yeah.
But I moved to Atlanta, and me and Jimmy Herring were running the school. And Jimmy would show up with a tuxedo on. Of course, then it was a red hair and red beard, going to do a top 40 gig and stuff like that,
That's
and
funny.
Both making $60 a week, and it was just, he had just moved here from LA as well. And, he got into the Bruce Hampton thing, and his career took off, and I kind of stuck to the fusion thing and went the other way, So, and Jimmy was just a great player, nice guy, and I learned a lot from him. So I guess the point is when I came to the Atlanta Institute of Music, the guys that were there that ended up doing the keyboard department and stuff like that were really, really good players. So I had a wealth of knowledge at all the time, and then I would just pick up gigs and go out and play. My first album I ever did was with Adam Nitti. And
Bass player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a group together right when Adam first started his career, and it was called Liquid Blue. And that was the first CD we put out. I think it was in '96. And it was with Adam on bass and a sax player named Sam Skelton, who's like the Brecker of the South.
The Brecker of the South. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then Tom Knight, who's just a machine on drums. He's, I actually introduced him to Dave Weckl because Dave Weckl was his big hero. And,
wow.
He's just, him and Weckl were like brothers. I mean, he could play everything Weckl, because that's what he studied, and I kind of met Weckl through Mike Stern, and that's how Tom got to meet him. So that was my first real kind of, band where I actually saw the CDs come in a box. you know,
That's
my
cool.
name. Yeah.
When did you get into fusion? Because it's like a young man to be that young and that passionate about fusion is not common. Usually guys like they have a career, but like they always have a passion for jazz / fusion, but they don't necessarily get to play it until later. But you were like pretty hardcore from the beginning. How'd you get into that?
It was really weird. Well, I guess it wasn't really weird, but the first exposure I kind of had was listening to Wired and Blow by Blow.
Oh,
You know, I remember being at a party with some guys that were just kind of playing the turntable. You know, we had turntables.
I just got goosebumps, man. Those two records.
Yeah, and when I heard those records, I was sold. I was like,
Yeah.
you know, and I just loved the whole thing about it, the groove and the rock feel and the jazz changes. So that was one thing that really kind of inspired me to want to play that kind of music.
Yeah.
The other big thing was Jimmy Page. I knew had studied jazz, so I figured, well, I'm going to study jazz because I was a big fan of Jimmy Page just in his compositions, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Incredible. Such a great writer. And he doesn't get enough credit. I mean, people focus on, I hate when you see people, oh, Jimmy Page is sloppy. I see that all the time. Like, I think every guitar player in the world wishes they were as sloppy as Jimmy Page, you know?
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, yeah, they miss the whole point when they look at that because I mean, when you think of,
Yeah.
that's a tritone sub in the 70s with distortion, you know, that's a jazz thing. So, you know, I kind of got into the jazz, you know, I still have more of the rock bluesy kind of things in my soul. You know, I got into Hendrix and all the 60s kind of music and but the jazz just kind of, you know, it's almost like I didn't know if I was really into it or not. It just intrigued me to want to figure it out.
Intellectually, you mean?
Intellectually, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the more I started trying to figure it out, the more I found there was
Good luck.
And you know, and right before I put the guitar down from doing jazz, I'd find something that I could play that I was like, I got it. I got that one little 2/5 lick, you know, so I'd keep going, you know.
All right.
So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it, you know.
So it's more of an intellectual curiosity that compelled you. Just the challenge of it was really compelling to you.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool.
I mean, that's really all I did when I was younger was just, you know, I'd go to coffee shops and, you know, I mean, I'd sit there for hours and just write out scales and stuff like that. And just, you know, math was kind of a good, it was the only subject I think I was good at, you know.
Which is not uncommon for musicians.
Yeah. So the music, the theory and stuff just kind of came natural to me. I mean, the biggest shock I think I had was when I got out of GIT, I went on the road with a country band. And when you said St. Petersburg, there was a thing that happened when we were in St. Petersburg where
Here in town.
yeah, I was at a hotel and I met there with the bass player and he was going to show me the songs that we were going to play. And he had his bass and he hit the open E string and he goes, well, you play E and then you go to E sharp.
Was he serious?
He was. He didn't know. And I just found that most guys that were out there playing that were not
Wow.
that kind of were just
Oh man, that's scary.
yeah. So, and of course I tried, you know, I had the whole GIT thing of I'd learned from Scott and Don Mock and had all these cool things. So I got in a top 40 band and, you know, they would do Johnny Be Good and I was going up a half step and playing melodic minor and all this.
That's
you know,
wild.
Really, I was the only one enjoying it. But
yeah, I would imagine that. Yeah.
And you know, there's a funny story because I remember doing that. And then later on, Mike told me a story, Mike Stern, when he was with Jocko in Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And Mike said, he goes, Jocko came up to him and he goes, hey, Mike, you know all that stuff you're playing in your solo? Mike goes, yeah. He goes, that shit ain't happening. So
who did I have? Man, I had somebody on from the city. I'm embarrassed. All improvise. oh, this is so embarrassing. I'm sure you know him, maybe a buddy of yours, Wayne Krantz. Whew, sorry.
Oh, I know Wayne real well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had him on. He was, it's funny. He was one of these guys that like, he's kind of on the quiet side.
Yeah.
And it was some people I could tell this. It's hard to sort of have these interviews sometimes if you're really quiet. And it was a real push for him, man. But he did it. He was a lovely guy, And then afterwards, and thank God this usually happens after. He's like, man, this was a lot of fun. Thank you. It's not me, and it was kind of difficult, and so I'm always grateful when someone extends himself like that. It's really cool. But he was a very, very sweet guy, man.
I got to really know Wayne well. First off, a friend of mine, Jim Gillen, who had passed in the city, got me a lesson with Wayne back in the 90s, I think. And he was living in Soho.
Yeah.
And, I went to his apartment, and it was like a bed. And that was the size of it. It had everything in that,
Yeah.
But I was fortunate because I was head of the guitar department and get guys to come down and do clinics. So
in Atlanta.
In Atlanta. So
okay.
Because I was taking lessons with Wayne, I said, hey man, can I get you to come down and do a clinic? And it's really strange because I got to become really good friends with, I was already friends with Mike Stern, but Mike Stern, Steve Kahn, and Scott Henderson, and Wayne Krantz, because I would say, I knew Scott before going to GIT, but the other three, I had them all come down for a clinic, and I would make him an offer. I'd say, hey, we can get you a hotel room, or if you want, I got a house and an extra room. And they all wanted to stay with me at the house, which I thought was, wow, Mike Stern, 3:00 in the morning. Hey, Mike, you remember that lick you played in the Brecker Bros? That was awesome. Oh, I hate when
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
So you spent a lot of time with these guys picking their brains.
Yeah, and got to really find out that, because I think growing up as a guitar player, one of the biggest struggles any musician I think has is that we're practicing and we're always trying to get there, and we never realize that we're already there. We're just learning more,
I think anytime you're at an advanced level in anything, school's never out for the pro.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
No matter what you're doing. And like, you're looking for one little thing because you're not thinking like this, but in reality, your plate is pretty full.
Yeah.
You're not going to find something that's going to improve your playing by 10% once you reach a certain level. But if you can find one little thing that ratchets you up 1%, and then next year find another 1%,
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the kind of the reality of just working so hard.
Yeah. Well, and that was, not to put down Leonard Skinner or anything, but when I would go over Alan's house, it was more really about, playing bar chord songs. They're great songs. I think Skinner wrote was great, but it was more about really partying and playing and drug, sex, rock and roll kind of thing.
Totally different vibe, man.
Yeah. And it really wasn't about the music. And I think I was so in depth with, I can do these bar chords. I wanted to take it further. And that's kind of what led me into getting into jazz.
Yeah. Okay.
The bass player showed me a major 7 chord, and it was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I had to figure out what he means,
Sure. That's cool, man. Okay, so let me ask you this. So you got into teaching, got offered a position basically through your relationship with GIT and their sort of Atlanta hub that they now had.
Yeah.
As a teacher, what were people that tell me they teach say they love teaching because of the things they learn? That's
exactly right. Yeah.
What, maybe like knee-jerk reaction, top 2 or 3 things, most important things to you that you learned over 25 years of running the guitar department at Atlanta Institute of Music?
Things, I guess, like one of the big things, and I actually put it in my book, the Solo Jazz Guitar.
Solo Jazz Guitar? Where can people, by the way, where can people get that?
They can get it probably anywhere. It's online all over, but
okay.
Because Hal Leonard distributes all over the world, they can pretty much get it anywhere. Which I got an interesting story I'll tell you about the Hal Leonard book that I thought was cool. But it's kind of like, I think the biggest thing with students that I had to kind of learn to enjoy to teach, you know, because I think we all go through that phase where it's like, you know, teaching can get dragged out, you know, and for me, I was really fortunate because the guys that I started teaching they already had to have a high school diploma to qualify to get into school. So it wasn't like I was showing them Mary Had a Little Lamb, you know.
Sure.
So I think the big thing for me that I enjoyed was that, you know, they would ask me questions and I'd have to kind of think about it and come up with the answer, you know. And it's just like figuring out a math question. They say, what do you multiply this by and divide it by that? What is it? And you kind of think about it and it refreshes your brain. And then before you know it, you just know it automatically, you know.
Sure. So it reinforced your own knowledge.
It does, yeah. And it makes me think of things that I would love to play, but I wouldn't unless a student asked me, you know.
Oh, that's,
you know.
so it's a constant like idea fodder.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing that I think why I have, you know, a pretty good repertoire with my students is that because of the guys I learned from, like Mike Stern and those guys, it was really, I was kind of the oddball teacher at the school. Not oddball, but, you know, a lot of the guys they didn't have the experience of playing out or doing records or anything like that. So they would kind of go, well, here's the curriculum. This week we're going to follow this line, you know. And one of the things I learned was like say, if you're doing triads, a whole step apart, and you go up one and down the other, kind of, you know, like if, you know, that kind of thing. I don't know if I could play right now, but, you know, for the tape, I don't know if you can hear it, but anyway, the idea of doing that, to be able to teach somebody that, it refreshes it in me to,
yeah.
I think of it on my own, you know.
And yeah, so what you're saying is you had a lot of the teachers that were more like pure academics.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
that's a problem with teaching in general, man.
Exactly.
I think in any subject.
Like this lick here. Let's see. If I go.
Can you put an amp on?
I have it in my car, so I don't have.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But the idea of doing that was that, I guess the point I'm trying to make with this is triads a whole step apart. Mm-hmm. And I've probably learned this 20 years ago. So I don't think it would be fair for me to give a student that and say I'm going to test them on it in 3 weeks, you know?
Yes.
And the thing is they're there to learn. They're not government demanded to go to school. They're there because they want to learn. So here it is. You take it and you know, Mike and those guys were never. Mike was just the sweetest cat I ever met, as far as, you know. I mean, I could call him at any time, and I still do. I talk to Mike probably twice a week now.
Oh, know? That's cool.
And that's been 30-year relationship, you know. So he really helps keep me grounded and stuff, and makes me realize that, you know, the stuff that I'm going through is the same stuff that he's going through, that everybody's going through. It's not like it's a, you know, well, you're not good enough, you're down here and everybody else is up here celebrating and making records. It's just, it's the reality of, it's just, we're all kind of at the same place trying to play music.
That brings up a good point in general about the importance of like interacting with peers professionally, because it is, you know, what musicians do. I've been like you know, working for myself for 20 something years, and it's a lonely life, man. Sometimes I don't have this big company office I go into. I work in my house, and most of my buddies are there, and we're all, you know, kind of driven. And musicians are the same way.
Yeah.
You know, you're constantly trying to improve. You're alone. It's a lonely, you know, except when you're gigging, but I think the importance of having people to connect with on a regular basis is healthy professionally for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because we're all like have insecurities, or can I be better, or why isn't this happening? And then, like you just said, Mike said, hey man, everybody feels that way. Like, really? Yeah. It makes you feel like more normal.
Yeah.
Or less insecure or whatever.
This is a story I had with Mike about 25 years ago. He stayed at my house, and, you know, we'll share this with you, and you probably already know it, being the professional you are, is, you know, one of the things to do is kind of transcribe lines that'll help your playing, you know. Doesn't mean you're going to play that line, but just it'll help just do a whole lot of things for you. You know, so I took Mike to the airport, and I said to him, I said, hey, Mike, when you get back to New York, maybe you could, you know, I'll call you and you could recommend a couple good books for me, you know, because I was really struggling. I wanted to grow, you know. And Mike said, I'm telling you, man, transcribe. That's all you'll need. And I said, okay. And he goes, what's wrong? I said, man, I do that, but I can get 7 notes, and that last note, I don't know what it is. It sounds like this note, and I try it, and for a minute it is, and for a minute it's not. And then I'm like, oh God, I'm way off. And then I try a different note, and it's like, I don't know what it is. I got 7 notes, but that last note, I just can't get it. And his educational answer to me was, fuck that note, man, and put something in there. And think of the 7 notes you got.
Oh man. Yeah. Focus on what you have. It's like the old gratitude thing. Focus on what you have and don't worry about what you, it's so important that somebody else gives you that information.
Now maybe I could say it this way if you need to edit in.
No, it's fine. It's okay. Totally cool. Yeah, you can curse and say whatever you want. Yeah, no, that's cool. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, you know, so it's those kind of things that, you know, I mean, I'm expecting them to say, hey, man, I think plumbers are hiring, you know, that kind of thing. You know,
or man, well, just hang in there. Get that note. It's really important. Yeah, it's not important. You got those 7 and make it your own with the 8th. Yeah, that's great advice.
Triggered something with me over in England. You said, get that note. I don't consider myself a big hero or anything. I know that I've played guitar all my life and it's just part of my life. But like you said, it's like for 1 hour when people see you, you're on stage and you're all this stuff, but they don't realize that that's not 24 hours. That's just 1 hour. The 23 hours are like what you said. It's like, now I got to pack my stuff. I'm sweaty. I'm tired. I got to load it in the bus. I got to travel for 6 hours, not talking to anybody. I got to find a hotel, get some, you know, it's like,
hopefully I can get a shower in there somewhere between. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and I got to find my cleanest, dirtiest shirt to wear for the next game.
That's great.
You know,
that's classic.
Yeah, people don't realize that. So anyway, I go to Southampton, and I'm doing some gigs down there, and I played with this guy that's just the coolest English guy down there, but he's totally British, you know. And you know, I mean, it's one of those things. It's not bragging about myself, but you know, they kind of were, oh my God, Bill Hart's here. He's going to get up and play and this and that. He's got 2 Grammys and this and that. And I kind of
you have like, 2, man. I didn't know. I just said there's a Grammy. I didn't. That's not on your on your bio.
I got nominated twice. I should.
That's cool. Okay, yeah. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So anyway, it's, you know. So the guy Dave is this guy. He knows David Gilmour. He's down there in that area.
Really?
Yeah.
God.
So they're doing this just this camera thing, and he goes, you're doing pretty good, mate. He says, you got 2 of them chords. Just come back. You get that 3rd chord, you'll be doing just great. You know, it's funny. So we've got this kind of monologue going with, you know, saying, hey man, I'm gonna come back and play. I think I almost got that 3rd chord.
Got that 3rd chord now, right on. Yeah, man.
It kind of takes it's just British. I know you totally understand that.
Yeah. Their humor is a little drier. It's just different. Yeah, you gotta just sometimes people think you're making fun of you. It's just their humor.
That's the humor, yeah.
All right, so you had to learn to enjoy teaching. What were some of the other important lessons?
Realizing that I had the opportunity. I had a drummer that was teaching at a music store, and he said they're looking for a guitar player, and I hadn't really taught young kids, you know, because I'd been involved with the Atlanta Institute of Music as a major institution for so long. And so I said, well, I think I'll try it. I'll see how that goes. You know, and the thing was I found that I really loved it, because I realized that they may not grow up to be a guitar player, but the things that I was teaching I'm talking kids like 8 years old, you know, 12 years old, that this kind of culture don't have any kind of positive reinforcement, you know. Yeah. So
it's tough.
It gives me the opportunity to say, hey man, you're doing great. You know, you're getting that note. And that's what Mike does, you know, so that's probably where it kind of comes from, you know. It's try to always look at the glass half full, you know, kind of thing, even with students, because it may carry over into something else they do in life, whether it's computers or whatever else. That
That, yeah, positive encouragement is like,
Yeah. So it's like planting seeds. So that
yeah,
I think I learned for me was, if I could do that, it was worth it,
yeah. So it's almost like a karmic good thing to do.
Yeah, kind of
Yeah,
giving back,
yeah.
the encouragement.
Very cool. Uh, Top three experiences you've had musically.
Ooh. Um, One of them I could mention is me being a fusion guitar player. I of course, growing up with Jeff Beck and stuff back in the '70s when Miles Davis was doing fusion, it kind of got this um, idea of fusion being a rock and jazz kind of mixed, fusing the two together. But I think it's either over the years or for me, the idea of fusion now is mixing cultures. It's I almost look at it like we all speak the same language, but somebody from Africa that's speaking is going to have a different accent. And I think that's the same when they play their music, even though it's still maybe 4/4 rock or jazz, but they're going to have a different feel from the culture.
Yeah, totally, man.
So one of my great experience, I had the opportunity to be the headlining band at it's in Guadalajara, Mexico, the Solstice, on top of these pyramids that were 5,000-year-old pyramids. And
Wow.
and the cool thing is there was a band that opened up for us that was a ska band from Jamaica. And they were probably a lot younger kids, but had a great band going. And it was like a horn section, really. And I think the greatest experience I had with that was me being on stage playing and seeing the trombone player motion to see if he could come out and just sit in. And I'd never even met him, and I just waved him out, and there was a big crowd. But when I waved him out came the trumpet player and the sax player, and there was like 5 different guys out there.
You got the whole brass section, right?
Yeah, and
brass and woodwinds.
Yeah, we're doing one of my tunes that I know they didn't really hear. I don't, but the thing that was so great is that we were able to speak the language, play together, and we couldn't communicate verbally, but musically it was like on fire,
That's so cool, man.
Yeah, and I thought that was just the greatest thing. Those are the moments I live for in music, is when that's magic to me. That's the spiritual realm of music, I guess.
Yeah, the connection.
When that happens, the connection, right?
What else would be in your top three?
Music experience, I guess when we the first biggest gig I ever did was well, I guess recording with Mike Stern was the next one. He stayed at my house and I was doing an album, Subject to Change, and Mike is on 2 cuts. And being able to sit in there with Gary Wilkins from New Jersey, who plays fretless bass, and he's just like Jocko, and just a great player, and Jeff Van Veen, who is back in Sweden, and Mike Stern and me, and just recording live like that with him. I did a solo on a tune called "This Is Why," and it's just a simple nylon string kind of melody. And when I was in the studio doing it, I was the one kind of engineering it. So I was like, I want to get Mike recorded, so when he goes back to New York, I can come back and do everything else. So I just plugged my nylon string guitar straight into the board, and I took this solo, and it was the first take. And I remember Mike going, "Oh man, that's beautiful, man." And I was like, okay. And then I went back and I loved the solo so much, but my mind was saying, well, it can't be the right one because it's the first take. You got to go back and add all these effects and do this. Got to get the right tone. So I did that, and I wrote it out and played it, and had him, when I would listen to him back to back,
right,
it was like the one that I played first with Mike had the soul in it, and the other one was just kind of like a generic track.
Interesting.
And so I went with the one that I did with Mike. So that to me was like a not only a great experience, but a big lesson on,
it's, what, anytime you have a pursuit where there's no measurement. It's not math. There's not a right answer.
Right.
It's so tough. And if you're tough on yourself, it's so hard to like trust yourself in a sense, like, because you know, I could do better. I could do better. Maybe you can, but like you said, that had the soul, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And I still listen to it today and it just gives me chills. It's like,
what song is that?
It's called This Is Why.
And what album is it off of?
It's off of Subject to Change.
I'll have to check that out. Cool. Thank you. What would be number 3?
Great experiences. I would say probably our first gig with the Liquid Blue Band in the early 90s was playing at a place in Atlanta called Chastain Park, which is like a huge amphitheater that, everybody plays. We opened for Lou Rawls.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah. So that was kind of that was a real big, great experience for me.
Hell of a musician Lou Rawls was. People don't know him as that really good musician.
Oh yeah. And wrote so many songs that people, that he didn't really get credit for, Yeah, the Liquid Blue Band was good. I guess another one would be in Jacksonville, Florida, at the Florida Theater. We opened up for the Yellow Jackets.
Oh, that's cool.
That was a very great experience.
Was Robin Ford was in the band then?
Robin wasn't in the band at that time. Yeah.
I had Robin on the show here.
Yeah, Robin's a nice guy too. I like Robin.
That's very cool. Yes, he is. Very cool, man. What kind of work did your folks do?
My mother was basically a mother in Canada. Really didn't work. She did some typing at a hospital, administrative stuff at a hospital.
Just that word typing, it's like you never even hear that word.
Yeah, I know.
Do you have kids?
Yes.
You tell your kids typing to be like, what?
Oh, I know. It's kind of scary. They're, if they're going to learn how to really write.
I know. I think they're like doing away with that actually.
I know. It's a trip.
It's bad because that's why people send you. No, everybody speaks in like you are the letter U, the letter R. Yeah. Like that's not really a word structure. You know that it's like there's actual word. I know it's really weird, man.
Yeah.
So your mom is a stay-at-home mom?
Yeah, in Canada. And my father was in the Canadian Navy.
Oh, wow. So was anybody musical? Are you the only music?
No, nobody was really musical.
So how did, like, who inspired, like, your interest in music?
It always was, I guess growing up, in Canada, with just life in general, whatever was going on, good or bad, it was kind of a, I always like to listen to music.
Yeah.
And I don't admit it a whole lot, but at first, being that young, in the late 60s, early 70s, I was, I would like disco,
Yeah, don't admit that too much.
Yeah, I'm not going to admit that, but the thing I did like about it wasn't really so much disco as it was more funk.
Right. But there was such great funk music then, man. Holy.
Yeah. The funk music and the bass lines that they were doing was just, it just moved me, and I listened to that. And, I've just found over the years that, it doesn't matter what I play, whether it's jazz or anything, if it's kind of got that backbeat or at least a funk feel to it, I enjoy it,
Yeah. That was the era for funk music, man. It was just
Yeah. The Ohio Players and stuff like that. Just
Curtis Mayfield, Isaac Hayes. It was happening. It was funny. I had Ron Carter, the bass player, on the show, and I went back and I was listening to some of his stuff. He did a whole like sort of run of like funk. It was jazz, but it was like funk stuff. Yeah, he did a bunch of solo records. They were all called like they had it was Pastels was the whole series. It was like blue, you know, the word blue, and then the word, you know, it was like colors, different colors for a bunch of his albums. And he was like getting down. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it was interesting. But yeah, I'm a big fan of funk. So like, were your folks cool, like supportive of you playing music and becoming a musician?
Um, my mother was. My mother was very supportive, and my father was very supportive. But my stepfather really, I don't think he wasn't supportive, but he wasn't not supportive. It was kind of like he just
didn't get it.
Yeah, he was into Elvis Presley, and that was not something I was into. You know, when I grew up, I learned to respect him more growing up older. You know, as I got older. But
sure.
You know, my first hero in music was Alice Cooper. You know.
Yeah, that's guy listens to Elvis Presley. That's going to be hard to digest for him.
Exactly. You know, so
yeah, probably not a good mix, man.
Yeah,
that's funny, man. Low points. What were some of the low points or dark periods you've had to deal with in life, and how'd you get through them?
Oh boy. How dark do you want to go?
Whatever you want to talk about, man. It's all been said and done, and it probably, you know, everybody. It's funny. I always say, man, you live 50 years, you've had a lot of shit to deal with, man.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who doesn't get unscathed. It's not really like.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not reality.
I don't think you could play music if you didn't get unscathed, you know.
Especially artists. Yeah, man.
Because I think that's a part of you. I think it's what we hear.
Definitely.
Coming through our music, you know. Well, I've had a lot of like just, well, I mean, I kind of was at the end of the 70s, was still into the hippie, you know, hanging out with the hippies in Florida and hitchhiking when we could do that, you know.
Right.
I think they hitchhike with an Uber app now. I don't know how they do it. But
yeah, I don't know how they. I would be scared to death to hitchhike now, man.
Oh, now I wouldn't. Yeah. You know, so I don't know. Music always seemed to be the thing that kind of pulled me through. You know, in any of my struggles. I think moving to LA when I first got there was really rough. My roommate that went out there with me from Atlanta kind of grew up more in a solid family, I guess you could say, you know. And when we got out there and lived in Hollywood and he saw how the crime and everything was, it just, you know, he couldn't adjust to it. And for me, it just felt like I was at home. You know? So he left and I kind of got stuck in LA with no place to live with just an amp and a guitar, you know. And
what'd you do?
I was sitting on Hollywood Boulevard and I don't know what it was. I just had this feeling that, you know, I was going to make it if I had to sleep in the bathroom at the school and hide my amp in a bush. I was going to do whatever it took because I was not going to come back to the East Coast because it took me too long to get out there, you know. And I was kind of self-supporting. You know, I didn't have a lot of support from family or anything like that.
Sure.
Left home at a young age. And I just remember sitting on Hollywood Boulevard and there was a guy that I'd met. His name was Jimmy. And he walked by me and he said, "Oh, Billy, you made it." And I said, "Oh, hey, man." I said, "Can I leave my amp at your place? I don't want to carry it. I don't have a place to live." He goes, "Oh, dude, you could stay with us." He goes, "There's 17 of us. If you find a place on the floor, it's yours." And they were all GIT students. So I was like, I went from homeless to being in heaven, you know?
Wow.
Yeah. And then
17 in a house.
Yeah. And then as I was staying there, I was on the balcony and I looked down and I saw this guy named Evan playing bass and he was playing a 6-string and they weren't as popular back then, you know? And Evan was he was the guy from New York City that was friends with Anthony Jackson.
Oh, okay.
I said, wow. And then that's how we met and became roommates with the guys from New York, you know?
Isn't it funny how things work out sometimes?
They do. Yeah. I think you know, I mean, music has always been a part of it. There's been times where, you know, I think like all of us, we kind of go through this phase of, you know, am I really doing the right thing? Do I really need to get you know, what they call a real job?
Sure.
You know, and I've tried to do that, you know, 30 years ago or so to try to get something that I felt like was more, I guess what I thought would be more stable, you know. You know, I would do it for a day or two, and it was like I just didn't want to live.
Yeah, yeah.
It was like life just completely sucked, you know. It's like, so it wasn't really about the money for me, but I know that if you persevere at anything, it's really gonna, somehow it's gonna work out. You may not be a billionaire, but you know, if that's, when I was at the Atlanta Institute of Music, I would do what was called a how to practice clinic at the beginning of the school, and I'd get the whole school would come into the auditorium, and I would basically just kind of brief them on what to expect through the year on, you know, you're going to get hammered with a lot of work, you know, do the best you can, don't beat yourself up. You're going to get depressed because that's kind of what happens. You get overwhelmed and you feel like you're not getting it, and then you start beating yourself up. And the big thing I would tell them is that if your primary goal is to make money, then you need to go get a refund, because not to say that you can't make money, but if that's your primary purpose, then you're really going to be miserable for a long time, you know, because your heart's in the wrong place.
It's very realistic and cool. You know, it's funny. In having 750 interviews at this point, I think maybe one person I spoke to said they thought they could make money. And I think maybe two other guys said, oh, I started playing guitar for girls. But
Yeah.
by and large, 99.99% of people did not, they just wanted to play music. It made them feel so good.
Yeah.
And I've learned so much from that. The value of that, it's immeasurable.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it really is. And it's a wonderful thing.
And there's even times when I'm more happy sitting in my own room by myself, making progress on something that I've been trying to get, than
Sure.
going out and playing a big performance, you know.
Yeah, I get that.
It's fulfilling, you know.
But I thought it was cool, to your credit, when you said, I'm sitting on Hollywood Boulevard with my guitar and my amp. And for the record, what guitar and what amp was that?
That was a Bill Lawrence Stratocaster, and it was one of those PV 130 specials.
I thought it was so cool that you said, I wasn't going back to New York. I knew this would work out somehow.
Yeah.
That's, you know, such, you know, to have that belief as a young person too. And in some ways, maybe it's easier as a young person because, like, you got less to lose in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? But I think that I've heard this same story, different versions. Maybe he wasn't sitting on the floor of Hollywood Boulevard. Some of the guys I spoke to have been homeless on Hollywood Boulevard. Same thing.
Right.
But just to have that connection with, like, the universe, to know I'm doing the right thing, that is what I find so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Magic.
Yeah. That's, and you know, and I think what's happened to me over the years is that I've had several experiences like that, you know, I mean, when you have one that happens like that, you kind of go, okay, maybe it's a coincidence, you know, and then the second time you do it and the same thing kind of happens and everything works out. And then, you know, after 50 times it happens and everything kind of works out, you kind of start developing this attitude that no matter what, it's going to work out.
Yeah.
The way it's supposed to, you know. So that's kind of been very helpful, especially in the music business, because, you know, there's so many, we can get so caught up in the whole ups and downs and everything else, and being alone and you know, and everybody else thinking that you're just living this glamorous life. And
sure,
you know,
yeah, that's such a myth. It's so funny, you know, I wasn't hip on that until I started, you know, getting to know everybody, you know, because it's not thing I ever I didn't think it was glamorous, but just nothing I considered. And I realized how absolutely difficult this is.
yeah,
The glamour is like, you know, 2%, if you're lucky, of the total time that you're alive, you know, as a musician.
It's, you know, and it's weird because we've spent so much time alone. We really don't know what's getting out there and what people are listening and what they think about us.
Yeah.
You know? And I kind of learned that through Steve Kahn. I was talking to him recently, like probably in the last few months, and you know, he had mentioned that he's, you know, doing this record, and he doesn't, you know, he's living in New York, and he, you know, he does them and he puts them out there, but he really doesn't get out and know who's really listening to it or not. And I'm down here and I'm hanging out with people that are all into it, because it's universal musically. You've got a drummer that could totally get a lot out of Steve's music, or a bass player because Anthony Jackson's on it, you know. And the experience I had was, the first gig I ever did in Europe was in Paris. And that was a little under 10 years ago. And it was weird because it was just like setting up in a club and doing a gig, you know, and I'm doing my music, and I had a record label out of Chicago that I'm sure did some advertising and stuff like that. But the cool thing is that I ended up setting up for the gig, and before they opened the doors, they had a couple people come in, and this one tall black guy came in, and he was talking to me, and he was mentioning like Weather Report and you know, Jocko, and just all these names that I was like, wow, I don't usually get this in the States, you know, where people come up and they talk about that, you know, those kind of players. And I was floored.
That's,
you know?
so cool.
And so we shook hands, and he told me his name, and I said, man, it's so great to meet you. I said, my name's Bill Hart. And he goes, we know you're a legend over here. And I was like, what?
That's,
you know, so it's kind of cool how you really don't know what's happening.
yeah.
You know, that, I mean, it didn't really give me an ego. It just gave me
no, it's a validation.
It's a validation. That's what
yeah,
it is.
It's like, holy shit, someone's feeling good. I'm doing something that's making someone.
It's going somewhere.
Right.
So maybe I'll keep going, because we're constantly, I know for me, I'm constantly ready to jump off the cliff, you know?
I understand how you feel, because like my show, I just see numbers. But when I call someone like to come on the show and they're like, man, I love your show. I'm like, really? I don't know. I mean, I just see numbers. I don't know what that means. Or so I understand. It's a different thing, but and I'm not trying to compare myself to your level of professionalism at all, but
same kind of thing. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, and it just feels good to know, oh man, this is cool that I'm putting something out there that makes somebody else feel good.
Yeah.
You know, that they laugh or smile or whatever, you know. So I get that, man. It's a validation for me anyway. That's why I you know, it's like, oh, so keep doing it, keep, you know, whatever.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You know, I mean, I've learned in life that there's always, you never get a coin with one side on it, you know?
Yeah, I like that.
You know, so
you got a bunch of nuggets here, man.
I think it's helped me survive over the years.
Yeah, you never get a coin with one side. That's a good one.
Yeah, you know, so there's always two sides. Like, for example, the music business today. I mean, you and I both know when they were doing vinyl and record labels, it was a business, and
yeah.
A record label would front you money because they knew that they'd sell your records and get money back, and you know, if they got more, you might get some or whatever. But it was a business, and now that's kind of been wiped out with the internet, because you know, why would people want to go spend money and they can just go on Spotify and listen to it? They don't even have to.
Sure.
And somebody asked me about that, and I said, I don't know what the answer is, but I'm going to still be optimistic about it, because at the beginning of the music career, there was a time when the only way you could be heard on the air was if you played live in the studio and they broadcasted you live.
That's right.
And then vinyl records came out, and there was like, oh God, there's going to be this war. There's people that can listen to the radio for free. Why would they want to spend money on records?
Right. That's a good point.
People are going to spend money on records. Why are they going to want to listen to the radio?
Yeah.
It literally grew into a multi-billion-dollar business.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know it's not going away.
No, it's not. I think what's happened is it's good and bad. It's leveled the playing field in the sense that if you're willing to go on social media and you are now your own record label.
Right.
So it's leveled the playing field for people that are willing to do that. It's taken away from people that had a whole career of not doing that. Oh, and now I got to do, that's hard. You know, you're 40, 50, or however, 60 years old, and all of a sudden like, hey man, you got to get on Facebook. It's like, what?
Yeah.
That's not, but I think any change, there's attrition like that. And in any business, that's just going to happen from time to time. It's just timing.
And I think it's going to bring live playing back, you know.
God, I hope so, man.
Now you got to you do live playing, and people go buy your records. Instead, now they go on your social media.
Right. It's
'Cause
exactly what
it's
happens.
real easy. It's like if I do a gig, I get so many people that hit me. Oh, are you on Facebook? And, you know, it's so easy just to say Bill Hart Music and it's done.
Right. Do you sell merch at your gigs still?
I want to. I haven't really yet because
Yeah, you need to, because that's still people do support artists when they're out at
yeah,
gigs. 100%.
yeah. I'm still a little lazy, old school about. You know, I get so involved in the music. It's like even when I was with Adam Nitty, it's like we were doing some major things and some articles and stuff, and I wish I would have kept them because I just didn't know the value of them. And I just,
Yeah.
you know, I figured whoever listened to them that day forgot about them tomorrow. I didn't know.
Sure. I get it.
You know, so but
Yeah.
it's always just like music. I'm always learning. You know.
Well, it's a definite thing for musicians too. It is not an inherent natural thing to go and sell merch and do business stuff in general. It's almost like there's an allergy to it to some extent.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I understand that, man. But sell merch, yeah, you'll get some people will support you, man. I can promise you that.
Okay. I'm gonna take you up on that for sure.
Good. Talk about gear for a few minutes. What's your go-to guitar right now? Has that changed over the years? And what two other guitars would round out your top three?
I have about 16 guitars, and
that's cool.
The main reason is
I like they said about 16.
Yeah.
So it could be 15, could be 18, about 16.
Yeah. Like it's like what you have on your wall. You know, I've got a hollow body for certain things. I've got a Strat for certain things, a Les Paul and 335. I've got the Godin nylon string guitars that I use. You know, it's acoustic guitar. So, I mean, because when I first moved to Atlanta, I was doing a lot of sessions.
Right.
You know, where I would just come in and lay little bits down on whatever it was. But my go-to guitar right now is this one.
Strat?
It's a 1972 Strat.
It's a really pretty. Let me see that again. That's really pretty, man. I've never seen that color. What is it? Is that something you painted over?
I got it really cheap. A guy wanted one of my hollow bodies that I only paid a couple $100 for. And I had another Strat that was given to me. I said, well, I'll give you these two guitars for it. He was in heaven. But the thing is, when he gave it to me, it had like Grateful Dead stickers all over it.
You imagine like you're doing a gig with Mike Stern, you have Grateful Dead stickers.
Yeah, exactly.
Down at the 55 Club or something.
Yeah. That's right. So I took the neck off and saw it was a 72, and then I finished it with gun stock oil.
But that's the original.
That's the original wood. I sanded it down and just put gun stock oil. I didn't tint it or anything.
It's a beautiful color. I've never seen that.
Yeah, I think it's the age of the wood, and then the gun stock oil kind of tinted it a little brown to bring out the.
What do you use? I never heard of that gun stock. Is that like for cleaning guns typically, or is it it specifically for?
Actually, what they put on like the wood part of the gun or the rifle. You know.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. It's just called,
interesting.
It's really just oil is what it is.
Yeah. And you finished it with that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I did the same thing that I did if I was to use lacquer. You know, I put the oil on, sanded it, put it on and wet sanded it and just did it a few times and it's just stayed.
One thing could you pick that up one more time, please?
Sure.
One thing, it looks really thick. Yeah, is that maybe a little wider than normal, or just like it looks
like the camera or the light, because it's really the same size.
It's just a conventional Strat. Okay,
just a conventional Strat.
Yeah,
just regular Strat.
Lovely looking guitar, man.
Yeah, and then you got the whole that headstock with the, squiggly Stratocaster on it.
So it's a 72 Strat. So that's your number one. What would be 2 and 3?
I have a Telecaster, G&L Tele, that I go to. And there's reasons I think why I go to each one. Like the Strat, I get more of that Strat Hendrixy tone, and I get to use the whammy bar a little bit for, I don't do the metal dives, but, like a thing, I guess, The thing that I like about the Tele is that it's got humbuckers in it.
Oh, cool.
you know, so if I'm doing something where it's kind of a rock and a jazz thing, I can do I can do both, and it cuts through, you know. So I put thicker strings on that to get more of a bottom end jazz kind of sound.
What like, are they flat wounds or no?
Not flat wounds on, but I do have a guitar I use flat wounds on. They're just like 11s.
Okay. Oh, that's pretty thick. That's a thick string. Yeah, man. And what would be?
And I've got 10 tops and 11 bottoms, you know. So
Gotcha.
so the thicker strings come. Yeah. And then I have, I guess the other two would be, I have a nylon string Godin.
Mm-hmm.
And then my jazz box is a Benedetto.
Oh, you know what? You're the first guy that I've talked to that owns one of those.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I have not talked to anybody that owns one of those. I see him advertised in like jazz publications sometimes online.
Yeah. It's I think it's the Bambino is what it's called, the Benedetto Bambino, and it's got one pickup in the neck, and it's kind of a jazz guitar because you really don't, you know. I had an L5 at one time, and it was a great guitar, but you know, doing the fusion stuff, it was like if I brought that guitar in a gig, it was like if I was doing jazz stuff, it cut through great, but the minute I went into any kind of funk or rock, it just didn't have the, you know. So I ended up kind of cutting back on that one, and so it was turned out to be like an expensive piece of art.
Yeah, I get. Yeah, man.
I wasn't doing a lot of straight ahead jazz, you know.
Sure, it's hard to. You want to use unless you're a collector, you want to use your guitars, and most guitar players I know, most are not collectors.
Yeah, I'm not a collector. It's like I either use it or lose it.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Travel too much, it's just dead weight.
Now, so you've been playing this Strat. Was this always your number one? I mean, obviously before you had it, it wasn't, but have you always been primarily a Strat guy?
Yeah. When I moved to Atlanta 30 years ago, I moved here with a Strat. I went to Jacksonville with a Strat. I had a 335 for a long time, an Epiphone, 64 335.
Oh, nice.
You know, that was a great guitar. And I have a Eastman 345 now.
Are they still making guitars? I was told that they're not.
I'm not sure. I kind of got an endorsement with them through a guy here that was working with them, and he said, "Here, take this guitar home and just try it out. Tell me what you think." And I said, "Sure, I'll do that." You know, and it was like a couple of years ago on Christmas. He says, "Oh, you remember that guitar I let you use?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, Merry Christmas. You can keep it."
Wow.
You have it. I was like,
cool. Great. Yeah.
You know, so
does that model look like a Les Paul, or is that like a 335?
It looks like a 335.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's
they're nice looking guitar. I mean, they look just like Gibsons, man.
Yeah. They're a really good quality guitar. You know, I don't know a whole lot about them. I know that they're, you know, I mean, I don't know if I would have went out and looked for an Eastman.
Yeah.
You know, but it was kind of a gift, and it sounds, I mean, it plays like a Gibson, you know. It's and I know that they do make high end. I think they started with like violins and stuff like that real intense wood type stuff.
Oh, I thought they were all former Gibson employees.
Oh, maybe, I don't know.
No, wow. You could be. I don't know. I could be mistaken on that. That's what I thought.
Like I said, I don't know a whole lot about them as far as, you know, other than the guitars I've seen that's come out of there have been really good guitars.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. And what do you play through most of the time?
I use 2 different amps that I use depending on what gig, but the main amp that I use is I have all tube amps.
Mm-hmm.
I have the Fender Blues Junior.
Is that an old one?
It's an old one. Yeah. Fender Blues Junior with a Maxon, the tube screamer that Maxon is actually the one that made the chip for the tube screamer, and then they made their own pedal, and really that's like that, and the reverb on the amp is, you know. And then I got the whole other side where I've got 2 amps where I do a wet dry rig.
Okay.
And have all the, you know. But I go through that cycle of, oh, this is the greatest stuff. I can't wait to plug all this stuff into. I don't need this stuff. I don't need to sell it all. I'm just using one amp, you know, to.
Yeah. It's a big commitment, man.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Really is.
You know, so.
Best guitar and best amp you've ever owned or played?
I would say, let's see, the best guitar would probably be this 72 Strat.
72 Strat? That's cool, man.
Yeah. Yeah, as far as the tone, it's got that Strat tone and everything to it. The amp is something that I don't know if you know Roy Roger from Peavey.
I do not.
He's the Southeast rep. He used to follow me around, and when I would have a gig, he'd show up. And one day he walked in with a Buddha, 30 watt Buddha amp. And he says, "You got to hear this amp. It's 30 watts. He says, "You're going to love it." And I was like, "Oh," I said, "You know, I'm in a gig." And so I took a break, and then I switched out the amp, and it was like, I couldn't believe it. I'd never heard a 30 watt amp sound that good and that loud. So I went ahead, and when I walked it back out to his car, I went past his car and went to my car. I said, "We're going to have to work something out." So he worked something out with me, but I still have that amp today. And it's like, it's just a pure, it's like you could plug guitar straight in it and you get that sound, you know, without having to do any kind of modifying or anything or effects or anything like that. It's just got that warm tube, you know, when you want a crunch sound, it just sings. It's just amazing. And the weird thing is, that was made by Peavey, but because Buddha sold out to Peavey.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. And I liked the Buddha so much that I went ahead and got one made by Buddha. And the Peavey one, I was like, this one's blowing the original one away. And I couldn't figure out why. So I started looking online and found out there was all kinds of, you know, comments on there about how good the Peavey ones sound a little bit better than the Buddhas. And, you know, so it kind of confirmed that what I was hearing, not just imagination, because I don't trust what I think.
Well, it's you don't know what you don't know. Leslie West I remember I reading I don't know why I was a big Leslie West fan. That's probably why I used to play a Buddha or played one for a short time.
Oh yeah.
I remember seeing him endorse them in like magazine. This goes way back, but
yeah, they're great amps. I really, you know, the school.
Are they around anymore?
Well, Peavey has them now.
Okay.
And they still make them look the same, but it's just under the umbrella.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I'll tell you, I have a Delta Blues amp Peavey. It's a 30 watt. It's got a single 15 speaker. It's a great crunchy. I mean, it's a wonderful amp. I love it, man.
That was one of my other favorite amps was the Peavey 30 watt. The one with the vintage blonde. Yeah.
I wonder if it's this. Can you see that amp I have down there?
Oh, is that the Peavey?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one I used to have one of those.
And I got that I was hanging out with a guy. It's like an old Fender, man. It sounds like wonderful. I love that amp, man.
You know, the school was completely flooded with amps. I mean,
that must have been cool.
Endorsements, but there was one amp, and it was that Peavey amp that whoever got there first as the guitar teacher would go through the room and grab that amp to use it. Just clean or dirty, it just had that sound.
Yeah, it's a great amp.
Yeah.
How come you left? What's that?
You could really hear the tubes and the warmth of it.
It's great. It's got the dirt channel, a clean channel, and it's got incredible. What do you call it? Not reverb. I'm having a brain fart. It's a senior moment. Tremolo. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
It's got a great tremolo on there. Yeah. How come you left teaching? Was it just time to retire for you, or?
I was really at the point where I was starting to go to Europe more. And,
okay.
I really need to kind of. It was a tough thing to do because you know I was comfortable.
Yeah.
And I don't grow when I get real comfortable.
Sure.
And I was afraid that it was like, you know, I'd been doing these gigs, but I'd always been kind of tied to the school, you know, and I really wanted to get away from that and just get out and play more.
Good for you, man.
Yeah. So it was another one of those sitting on Hollywood Boulevard things, you know, it was like, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just, you know, I mean, the checks were coming in and now they're not, you know, and it's
Well,
like,
no, they're not coming in for anybody now, so don't feel bad.
yeah, right. Yeah.
I mean,
So,
nobody's getting paid anything now, man. It's a
right.
very tough, dark time for music, man.
It really is. Yeah. You know, but fortunately I'm starting to work a lot more. You know, I had 4 gigs last week.
You said you got a standing gig now too.
I do, on a Friday night at the Velvet Note.
Where's that?
The Velvet Note is in Alpharetta.
Okay. Is that outside, just outside of Atlanta?
Yeah, they still kind of consider it Atlanta. It's more like a suburb city. That's
the Velvet Note.
The Velvet Note, and they actually stream it live.
Oh, that's awesome.
On Facebook and YouTube. So
very cool. Very cool. Top 3 Desert Island discs. In no particular order, just for now, because obviously that could change.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think one of them for me, and of course I'm thinking of not just listening, but being able to play along with and learn, you know. One of mine would definitely be Wish You Were Here from Pink Floyd.
Oh, dude, what a record.
Yeah. I think Gilmour is one of my favorite guitar players. It's like, I mean, his writing, his playing, his everything he does, his solo, his feel, you know, and he's a great guy, great attitude, the whole thing, you know.
And I've had, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. He's my all-time favorite guitar. I mean, you know, I had a crappy childhood. I listened to Gilmour all day long, and that got me through day in, day out.
That's me and you.
Yeah. And I've had his bass play, you know, Guy Pratt has played with him for like 30 years. Both. Oh, wow. He took, you know, he was Pink Floyd's bass player, and he's been playing with David solo for 30 years. I had Steve DeStanislao, his drummer, and I asked Guy, I said, Guy, is there any chance I ever get David on my show? And he looks at me and he goes, never. Because he's just not that guy. He never does interviews. He certainly would never do something this personal either. And I said, I get it totally. I said, you know, that's just like a wish list. You know, he's at the head of my wish list. You know, when I was in England, I went to the pub that he hung out with. It was like 2 miles from his house. And I was just hoping he would walk in, you know. I was ready to camp outside the door. Yeah.
Because apparently where I was, he would take his dog for a walk on the beach. And it was like, I mean, Gilmour has been my favorite all around for any style or anything. You know, he's at the top of the list.
Just so moving. Every note the dude plays is just... Yeah.
And that's actually that, you know, Shine On You Crazy Diamond solo is the one I get my guitar players go, you got to learn that, because that's where you're going to get your feel and your soul from.
Yeah.
And it's slow and it's melodic and it's just, you know, and it's funny. I ran into him one time in Guitar Center in Los Angeles back in the 80s. And I wasn't personally talking to him, but I heard this other guy ask him, hey, David, do you think you'll ever get into like the whole chops thing that everybody's doing now? Because shred was a big thing, right?
Sure.
And David goes, if I want somebody to play fast, I'll hire him.
Right. I mean, he's just been that. He's always mellow. He never does drama. He's never, you know, he sold all his guitars for like environmental charities. I mean, he's just a mellow dude.
Yes.
Very mellow dude. Outside of, he's got like 8 kids from 4 different women or something like that. And that's a bit of a stretch, but God bless him if that's what he likes, you know? Yeah. But yeah, that's cool, man. Wish You Were Here. What else? Number 2.
Wish You Were Here. I think another record for me would be probably John Scofield's Still Warm.
All right.
And let me see, it would be a third record. Boy, that's a hard choice.
It is, man. You could put a box set in if it matters.
I would say, yeah, right. I would probably say Scott Henderson's Dr. He.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool, man. All right. Tell me what makes you happy?
Playing music on stage. I could be totally depressed, ready to jump off a cliff, and the minute I hit the stage and play music, it all goes away.
That's great, man.
I put my guitar in the case and get back in the car, I can come right back to it, you know? And this has been kind of a recent, like, last few years of going, you know, it's really weird, because before it was a little different. Like years ago, it was more like, I can't wait till this gig's over, because I was nervous and afraid if I'm going to mess it up and this and that. And then I'd feel good afterwards because I accomplished it.
Right.
And it's kind of completely flipped. Now it's like, I don't even know who I'm playing with or what I'm playing, and it just doesn't matter. As long as I'm up there, I'll plug it in, and whatever happens will happen. It'll all work out. But when I'm doing that on stage, it's just, I'm in heaven.
That's awesome.
Life has left me, and I'm kind of on this spiritual realm of music, and
that's funny. I think aging has something to do with that. I know, like, one of the questions I often ask people, what's the biggest change in your personality? And the most common answer is, I give less fucks. But, as you get older, you're like, I'm there. You're more comfortable in your skin. Some version of that for guys over 50 is the common answer.
Yeah, that's funny. I played with a drummer that was Steve Vai's drummer when he was going to Berkeley. And,
wow, that's wild. Who was that?
Steve McCraw was his name.
Okay.
Great local drummer, but he was the same. He had that musician depression kind of thing that we all kind of go through, and I remember him saying this one day. He goes, and it took me years to get it, but I remember him saying, he goes, I played all this stuff and I hit all these cool things, and and I'm killing on the gig, and and I get all concerned about it. Nobody says anything, and he goes, now I just show up and I don't give a fuck, and people are going, man, you sound great, You're right. I think it's just that kind of
it's liberating, man. It's not, you're not so tied to what other people are concerned, other people's opinions of you.
Exactly. And I'm very much of the school of Miles Davis, with the, if you play it like the record, you're fired kind of thing,
That's cool.
That's because cool. I think the reality is that, well, first off, if I was to try to teach a drummer what I wanted them to play, it'd kind of be like somebody that eats food telling a cook how to.
Yeah.
It's like I'm just blocking them from bringing out stuff that they have. If I try to, if they're professional, they're going to know not to play a polka on a funk beat,
Well, it sounds like you always have you're always surrounded by some pretty cool cats musically.
Yeah. I've been real fortunate with that. And it's like, and they I think it's kind of the trend of the world is to be able to listen.
Yeah.
And the musicians I play with, I'm fortunate that, we all kind of listen to each other. So, there's we have ideas that come out, and it's those magic moments that, somehow everybody connects and they do this, whatever it is that just sounds great.
Very cool, man.
And it's like getting inspiration from our mentors, like Pat Metheny. I heard him say one time, that somebody had asked him about, playing his gigs, and of course he sounds like everything he does is perfect.
Yes.
And his comment was, it's almost worse when you get it and it's perfect. And the guy said, well, why? He goes, because you can do it, but you can't do it every time.
Oh, so yeah, that's interesting, man.
Yeah. So I thought, well, even at that level, he's still driving and still trying to, get that where everything's just 100%, and it just doesn't happen all the time,
That's pretty insightful. That's cool, man.
Yeah. And Bruce Hampton, Colonel Bruce?
Colonel Bruce, yeah.
Yeah.
He passed, right?
He passed, yeah. On his 70th birthday at the Fox. That was
that's
weird.
Right.
But he said something one time. Jimmy Herring asked him a question. He says, Bruce, how come some nights you're really not on, and then other nights you're just killing? And Bruce's reply was, life's not perfect. Why should music be?
There's a lot of great wisdom, simple stuff, man.
Simple, yeah. It's just that,
life's not perfect. Why should music be? That's cool. I like that. Another nugget here for you, Bill. Got a bunch of them. I always have this vision of going back and putting a book of all these quotes together, but I would never be able to read my own writing.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this. I'm like, I'm really trying to write carefully now. All right. Let's see. You have any non-musical superpowers?
What does that mean? Non-musical superpowers?
Well, I mean, you know, some people have certain gifts that they have that, you know, a certain skill set at doing something that's not related to music.
Oh, okay. I played ice hockey.
That's right. You said that.
Yeah. I ride Harleys.
Do you really?
Yeah. And I have most of my life. You know, by trade as a teenager, I did high-rise window cleaning in Jacksonville.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So,
holy crap. That is scary, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And I actually went out on a commercial fishing boat one time for about a year.
That's, God, that is a tough way to make a living, man.
That's the hard one. But I was a teenager, so I loved it. I was 17, I think, at the time, and it really taught me, you know, to be a man, I guess.
Well, all the guys on there, that's like very manly dudes.
Oh, it's
doing that. Wow. Where did you go, and what kind of fish were you?
We were squid fishing, and basically my brother-in-law in Jacksonville, the boat left out of Cape Canaveral, and he took a fleet of 5 boats with him. And my brother-in-law said, pack your bags for 2 weeks, we're going fishing. And I said, oh, cool, because I was looking for a job. And I got on the fishing boat. We went out to the Bermuda Triangle,
right,
by lightning, and it blew up like $250,000 worth of Loran gear. So once we got it fixed, we headed north to Rhode Island, is where we docked, and we stayed there for a year.
Oh my God.
But it was just the whole perfect storm kind of thing. That's what it was like. It was really a good experience. You know, I learned a lot.
What were your hands like at the end of that? They had to be like swollen, cracked, and like beat up, no?
Yeah. You got beat up quite a bit, you know, but you kind of got used to it after a while. You know, it's when I first went out, I was seasick, and I took.
I couldn't do that. Yeah.
I couldn't stay awake on the boat. When I was awake, I was throwing up, and it was, you know. And then I turned into the best guy on the boat, you know. So it's just one of those you got to get used to it kind of thing.
Oh my God! Just thinking about that gets me nauseous.
It was a tough living. It was
really tough. That's a really wow. Yeah. Do you enjoy eating squid?
I like squid.
Yeah, I do too. It's good stuff.
Yeah, and it's weird because people will think, you know, they like lobster, but they won't eat squid. And the difference is a squid will only eat what it kills, which is butterfish, you know.
Lobster, oh, really?
Yeah, lobster will eat crap off the bottom of the ocean. Doesn't matter what it is.
Butterfish. I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's cool. I love squid, man. It's delicious. You know,
it is. Yeah.
It's really good. It's really healthy. It's all protein. It's good stuff. No fat in there at all. Best money you ever spent on something?
Let's see. Best money I ever spent on something. Musically or anything?
Whatever you want. Could be musically, could be personally, whatever you want.
I would say my road glide.
What is that? Oh, is that a bike?
A Harley Davidson, yeah. You know.
Man, it must be like now it's probably not the same, but I bet 2 months ago in the thick of COVID, it was probably great riding a bike around. There's probably nobody on the road, right?
Yeah, there was nobody on the roads, and it was, you know, of course in Atlanta, you know, they're just, you really got to be careful here.
Dude, you got to be careful. I mean, people are, the word awareness, nobody's paying attention. People walking on the street, they're just like, and now that they all have masks on, it's even worse.
Yeah.
It's like they cut the brain activity one further step removed.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really weird with the masks that I've been thinking about recently is it's like, if you're playing a gig or something, you can't really tell the emotion of what, if somebody's smiling or if they're, you know, it's almost like you're playing to a set of eyes, a robot. You can't feel what they're feeling.
Well, imagine like you're single and you're walking down the block, and like in the past, you might be able to make eye contact and smile.
Yeah.
Now it's like, that's gone.
It is. Yeah.
In even body language, you know, facial expressions is, you know, they say nonverbal communication is like 70% or more of total communication. Well, facial expressions got to be a big chunk of that.
Oh yeah. I
So it's a lot, cut the distance of communications, just, you know, just another thing besides this that's cut down communication, man. You know,
Yeah.
weird stuff.
Yeah.
Favorite place you've traveled?
Um, I would say Italy.
What do you like about it?
Um, Sicily, actually. I had an experience where I flew to Sicily, and once again, as a big time musician, I was all alone. You know, so I get off a plane, and this girl that was a friend of the bass player picks me up at noon, and I thought she spoke English, but in Sicily there is just no English because they're pure Italians. There's no touristy things going on. So,
Oh,
and you know, and I wanted to see what Sicily was like. So Manuela picked me up, and then it was all done by phone communication of translating kind of things. And um, the coolest thing was she picked me up at noon, and my hotel wasn't ready for her to drop me off at 3 o'clock. So, you know, all the towns are really small there, so it's not like you have to drive 45 minutes or anything. So we communicated, let's go to my house and have an espresso.
oh, that's cool.
And I was cool with that because it's like everybody in Italy is just, they're driving down the road, they just pull in, they get out, they get the bar is just a bar with espresso. They get and they go. It's just such a common thing, you know. So, and I kind of knew that because I'd been in Italy for a while. So we went to her house, and she lived in kind of a big house. And we were just going to go by and have an espresso, and I walk in, and there's her mother, her grandmother, her father, her uncle, and they're all speaking Italian. And the only thing I was saying was no comprende, no comprende, and they just kept wailing. I got pictures of it. It ended up turning into a 5-course meal.
Oh my God.
Cooked from the land. They grew everything. And
That had to be delicious, man.
It was unbelievable. And I was on a diet at the time, where not a diet, I don't want to say a diet.
Bad timing.
Yeah. I had my eating to where, you know, I wasn't eating a lot of, you know, I was eating protein 3 times a day kind of thing.
Sure.
And I was kind of fit, and my stomach was not as big as it used to be, you know?
Sure.
So I was getting full real fast. And the mom was like, I mean, she was, you just really, you could tell the expression. She was like, I was insulting her by not eating the food. And it was so good, but there was so much of it, you know?
Wow.
And it just was like one plate after, I don't even know what it was, but it was great.
That's cool. Nice
know?
Story. That's a good memory, man. Good story.
Yeah,
it's funny how you didn't know anything that was going on around you communication wise. That's really wild.
Yeah, that was really neat. And one other experience I had with something like that was when I was telling you about that gig I did in Mexico
in Guadalajara. Yeah.
Guadalajara. We went to this little town called Tala outside of Guadalajara, and Tom was my connection there. So we're in his house, his dad's house, and we're rehearsing. And so I said to Tom, I said, hey man, there's a bar, they have this big table bar kind of thing, and there's all these guys sitting there drinking beer. So I said to Tom, I said, hey man, are you going to introduce me to your family? He goes, I don't know who they are. They just heard the music and walked in and started drinking. I was like, how cool is that? You know,
That is cool.
It's, you know, it's just so open. I mean, it's like, it just doesn't happen here like that. You know?
No, it doesn't happen here like that. Yeah. Other cultures are different, a little more mellow.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I've experienced being able to travel, is that, you know, it's not what the news makes it out to be. You know, people are all around the world are just wanting to be happy, and
everybody just wants to get through the day, man. That's all it's about. There's all this other bullshit is just diversionary.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with you. Hey, 2 more questions, and I just want to say thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate everything.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Likewise. Toughest decision you've had to make, or most difficult thing you had to do?
let's see, what would be the toughest decision I ever had to make? I guess leaving the Atlanta Institute of Music was probably a pretty tough decision.
Yeah, I was thinking that actually.
Yeah. You know, because it wasn't so much the politics and stuff, it was losing the connection with the students.
Sure. Yeah, and you had 4,000 students you've worked with. That's
because
that's massive.
It's different than doing like private lessons, you know, because I had a classroom full of guys that it was more like, you know, I didn't treat them like I'm the teacher, you're the student kind of thing, you know. Which, of course, if you said that on the internet nowadays, you'd get some slack from that, and you know what I mean. You know,
Well, you are the teacher. You're not doing your job.
Yeah. Well, who are they supposed to look? I mean, that's the other side of the coin, you know.
Yeah.
So, but it was more like they were comfortable with it. You know, they felt like they could open up to me, and I had a lot of guys open up to me, and really became friends. And not only that, but had a lot of personal stuff going on with addiction to drugs and alcohol or whatever was going on in their life that. You know, I was able to kind of reach out and say, hey, you know, I get it. Let's talk.
Are you someone who got sober?
Yeah, 27 years in October.
Dude, congratulations. That's so cool. I'm such a big proponent. I'm not a guy who got sober, but I've had family members, and like I think the 12-step programs should be taught in school for coping skills. I mean,
yeah, I agree.
You know, in fact, I just finally got a connection. You ever heard of Music Cares?
No.
So they're an organization. I don't know where they're located, but I think maybe in Nashville. I don't really know, but they will put musicians through programs to rehab often. You know, they're like a charitable organization, and I think there's some of their. I finally connected with them, and I'm trying to get something going where I could have some of their, you know, have a counselor on here, because I think during COVID, I don't know, but I would imagine that this has been a prime time for people to slip, you know, to relapse.
Yeah.
So, and then maybe to have some guests on the show, because I find most people like that sort of want to pay it forward in some way and share their journey as some part, man. Yeah. And I totally, we've had so many good stories that I had so many emails, you know, people listening, you know, this meant a lot to me. This particular episode got me through another day. And so we set up a playlist on YouTube for musician sobriety stories, and it's like one of the more popular playlists. So yeah, I'm a big anything I could do to support that cause is, you know, through this show is, you know, it's an important thing to do, I think.
October 24th will be 7 years. I mean,
dude, 27 years. Yeah, man. Congratulations. That is awesome. Good for you, man.
Without saying too much, I talked to a guy named Mike Stern twice a week or so.
Good for you, man. Right on. Yeah, that is awesome, man. Honestly, congratulations. That's a big to do.
The guy I look up to, you know. So
yeah, that's a big deal, man. Congratulations. Yeah. Last question: biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of that has been intentional, and how much is it just a part of aging?
I think probably majority of it has been intentional, and I think the aging is kind of part of it just because of aging. But, you know, I over the years worked really, really hard on myself, knowing that, you know, I came from a very, very, very unstable family. And before I've got two daughters, 18 and 22. I love them to death. They're my girls, you know, and before having kids, I went to a psychologist, and I said, I know you could probably lock me up for this, but if I put my girls through what I went through, I'll take my own life before they have the opportunity to experience that.
Yeah, I understand.
I know that from what I hear, the cycle just repeats, and I said, it's got to end here, you know? So I still go today once a week or so, you know, maybe not as much, but it's just helpful.
Sure, of course it is.
Yeah, so doing that and then getting in the program, and Mike Stern helped me out a lot with that about 20 years ago.
Awesome.
So I think the biggest change for me was intentionally by just working on myself and realizing that, you know, it's not all about me.
Right. That's a big thing for addicts, man.
It really is. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a narcissistic disease, and
it really is.
Yeah.
It's like you could tell an alcoholic, but you can't tell them much.
Yes. Have you ever heard of ACOA?
No.
I've been through that program. It's Adult Children of Alcoholics and
Oh,
Dysfunctional.
okay. Yes.
Changed my life. Changed my, I mean, I've been reading and trying to become better self-development for, I don't know, 30 years almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
That program more than anything. And maybe it was just the timing. Like I was ready, man, that's just one of the, I think everybody could benefit from that.
Yeah. They do the 12-step program too, I think, right?
Yes. It's 12-step. It's, I was reading that book and I was, and they have little, it's different than like a conventional 12-step. I mean, every program is different. It's geared to what it's geared to. But I would be reading some of the stories, like some of the narratives, like where they have in the chapters, someone would just talk, and I'd be like, it was so like comforting reading that because you think you're the only person that's fucked up. And you're like, this guy, wow, there's another person that feels this way from, and it was a great program. Great program.
Yeah, I would have to say that's been my biggest change intentionally, was doing the work.
Yeah. Good for you, man. Well, congratulations. And thank you for sharing that. That was very cool of you, man.
Yeah. Yeah, sure thing.
All right. So I want to tell people where to find you and what you got going on. It's Bill Hart, HART. You can find Bill's website at billhartmusic.com. Before we go through that, let's go through all the nuggets that he dropped. Let's see here. You never get a coin with one side on it. That was a good one. Hopefully I can find my cleanest, dirtiest shirt. That was a classic. If you play it like the record, you're fired, and life's not perfect. Why should music be? So thank you, man, for all this good stuff.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Go to billhartmusic.com. Also on Spotify, Bill has his own radio channel. So go on there, support his music. He's got 6 CDs out. He's got another one coming out, likelihood after the first of the year. What, do you want to talk about that to the extent you can, or?
Yeah. The name of that one is going to be called 7 Seas. And the motive behind it is that I kind of toured all over, and anywhere I went, I recorded, made it a point to record with somebody from Italy, somebody from the UK, somebody from Africa. So I've got a mixture of kind of a cultural.
Yeah, that's cool.
From all over. So.
Very cool. Great. 7 Seas after the first of the year. You can find Bill Hart Music on Facebook and Instagram. And if you are in Alpharetta or anywhere in Atlanta area, on Friday night, Bill's got a standing gig at the Velvet Note. And if you're not in Alpharetta, the show is streamed, so check it out online. And what's the best place to find that? At Velvet Note on Facebook, or?
The Velvet Note on Facebook is a good place, and they also have it on YouTube.
Awesome. So Velvet Note on Facebook or YouTube. I have a note here. It says solo jazz guitar. I don't know why I wrote that down. I apologize. Was there something I'm supposed to mention about that? Oh, no, your book. It's called Solo. Sorry. Yeah. Bill's book is called Solo Jazz Guitar, the Complete Chord Melody Method. Did you want to have you had a story about that, you said?
Oh, yeah. I guess the book's been out, and there was a time, I can't remember when, but probably a decade or so ago, when we were attacking Iran.
Yeah. That was in the 90s, wasn't it? Late 90s, yeah.
Yeah. A student from Iran contacted me and said that he had my book. And I thought to myself, I said, wow, and I was hesitant a little bit because I was like, what's going on here? And, he spoke the language, so I understood it. And he says, we don't have any kind of institution here. Would you help me? And I said, I'd be more than glad to,
That's cool.
He said, what would you charge? I said, nothing. I said, I'm sorry for what's going on in your country, between us and your country. And I said, but I'm glad you reached out about the music. So this guy became a really good friend. And I mean, Iran is like a really serious kind of like, he could get killed for finding out that he was studying from an American or anything like that. It's just really brutal, So he would send me questions by email, and I would go through and answer them and send them back. And it was just for me, it was just the coolest experience. Even though the world's at war, we could still peace with music,
Dude, that's some good karma there, man.
Yeah.
That you put out there. That's awesome.
Oh, thanks.
Nice story. Thank you. So check out Bill's book. It's called Solo Jazz Guitar. Again, BillHartMusic.com, H-A-R-T. Spotify, he's got his own radio channel. His new record will be out. It's called Seven Seas. I thought you were going to say it was in honor of the squid thing. And he's on Facebook and Instagram, Bill Hart Music. And then Friday nights at the Velvet Note in just outside of Atlanta. It's also streamed. Anything else that you want to promote or that I forgot to mention?
Just thank you so much for having me, and thank you for what you do.
Oh, man. My pleasure. Thank you very much for being a part of it. Hang on one second. I'll wrap this up. And thanks, Bill. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. Thanks very much to Bill Hart. And check him out at Bill Hart Music and support his music and listen to him. He's an incredible player, man. I listened to your last single that you just released. What was it called? I should have had it pulled up here.
Oh, Good Times.
Great. Yeah, I mean, you're a hell of a player. It's just like very cool to listen to.
And good times is kind of a slang term they use in England. Good times.
Oh, is it?
Good times.
Good times. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. My wife's maybe become too American. She says funny. She still eats funny, you know,
Yeah.
beans and potatoes.
Oh,
anyway, it's like, anyway, everybody, thank you so much. Most important, man, especially nowadays, remember that happiness is a choice. So choose wisely. Be nice, go play a guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I am out. Bill, thank you for everything, brother.
Thank you so much.